If you lost someone and you don't talk about it because you think you can be strong, or you shouldn't burden the others, or you don't even think about it too much because you're just trying not to push it away, which is part of the process, you're gonna hurt yourself so much that you're gonna spend years trying to dig down, and you're gonna lose relationships and you're gonna lose yourself.
And although we cry, our hearts are full, so full to the brim, until we meet again. We fell in love under the magnolia tree again.
If you lost someone and you don't consciously work with the process, you're gonna lose yourself. I'm gonna share some things with you in this video about how to approach it, how to approach this insane situation that someone isn't there anymore, that someone very important to you is gone. In the last 10 years, there was 3 years where I lost 2 pillars of my life. At the time, the 2 only pillars of my life, which were my grandma and my father. And they died within 2 years. And the first death was my grandma, and I tried to, we went to the funeral, and I had no contact with my family, so I didn't really talk to anyone. I was alone. And where I was at my workplace, I think I even shared it, hey, I'm going to the funeral of my grandma, but I didn't share it. I didn't allow myself to be vulnerable. Maybe that was because I already ran away, and I had a lot of pain in me already before then. So it made it so uncomfortable to open up to someone and trust someone that I just kept it inside. I went to this funeral. Parts of my family told me that I should be there for my mom, as if I was, not affected. That was really, really fucking hard. I also broke up with my partner at the time. Or I didn't break up with my partner. She cheated on me with her ex. And when I called her, because she said she was going to be there for me, after the funeral, she told me that's in the past. Because we had a fight. Because she cheated on me. And yeah, I remember when we were having dinner right after the first funeral, I only ate a soup. And I couldn't even keep the soup in. So I went to the bathroom, and at that point, I wish I would have known that going through grief alone doesn't work. At least not unless you do a lot of work. And I didn't do that. I was working 40 hours a week. In a restaurant, I had not the best environment for vulnerability. I only had a couple of close friends, and they were not living in the same city as me, so I couldn't really share with anyone. Going through it alone really wrecked me, and I don't know if I could have done it with my family. I didn't connect back to them just because there was so much pain. I couldn't go back to them. But yeah, I learned from that first loss, I learned that I need to talk about it. But I didn't. And then 2 years later, first he had a stroke, and then 2 years later my father died. And that was a totally different level because I didn't really process the death of my grandma, who was one of the only people that I could really talk about my emotions and how I was feeling to. That I felt like taken care of. And my father was the other one who really held me when it was a tough time at home. And when he died, I laughed. I remember the day I was working that day as a manager. We just opened a new restaurant in Berlin, and I was one of the managers opening it up. So I trained like a team. I had a lot of work. I was working 60-hour weeks, and I was very successful. And when I got the call from my stepmom, I remember that I laughed, and I didn't tell anyone until after my shift when I got back home. Why? Why would you not share that you lost someone? Sometimes we get the reaction from the outside that people don't know, or people don't do anything about it. But they don't know what to do. Everyone is trying to be so perfect around you. Everyone is trying to comfort you, but they don't know how. And this is gonna be okay. No, it's fucking not. It's not about that. And especially if you're going through it for the first time, you don't have the perspective that loss is and grief is teaching you something, is strengthening you, and you can grow from that. Like, you don't know that. So the takeaway from the second loss is for sure, talk about it. Talk about it. I only started talking about it when it got to inheritance. What is that? By not taking care of myself, I created so much frustration with myself that I punished myself for not taking care of myself for years. I'm only now getting back to it. I'm only now getting to a point where I can accept, hey, I was a kid. I was 21 years old at the time. I was a kid. I didn't know how to process these things, these insanely huge situations, and there's just so much passion and pain that comes together when you're reflecting on what that person meant to you. And my father and I, we had a really difficult relationship for a long time in my life, but in the last years before we broke up, we really connected. We really bonded. We went out for a beer. He paid for a tattoo of mine. We really chatted about life and about everything, and I admired him. Really admired him. He was such a role model for me in a lot of ways. So the first thing is, talk about it. It's painful and it's scary because you don't know what to do and you're trying to push it away. Talk about it, even if it's just in the mirror and you talk to yourself about it, even if it's just journaling. But you need to let the thoughts, the feelings, you need to let the stream flow. You need to let it out. Otherwise it's gonna crumble and crust and just stay inside you and fuck up everything else that is there. I was not able to make meaningful connections at the time. I lost friends even after that. Talk about it. Number 2, when you're realizing that you're not alone, when you hear other people talk about grief, there's heavy stories out there. So there is a chance that you want to run away from it. But you don't have to listen to the hardest parts, and the hardest parts are probably how you're going to miss that person. Those are important, but they are hard. So you can go in easily. You can ask, hey, what do you do through your day to not distract yourself? There's other people who have experience. There's other people who you can ask and they went through it, and hopefully you can see who's dealing with it correctly, because I was getting drunk and I was going to a lot of parties and raves, and that was not the right way. You can ask other people for advice. You don't have to ask your family, because if they're still grieving themselves, you can be with them, that's nice. But if you don't have the right connection, ask people who've gone through it already. So yeah, talk about it and ask people for advice. What I learned now, after years of therapy, coaching, self-reflection, meditation, presence work, inner child healing, like systemic coaching. I did so many systemic coaching sessions where I screamed and burst because there was so much pain inside me, because it was accumulated over such a long time. So if you talk about it and you ask for advice, then you can get to a point where you can feel what this person meant to you. And one of the important parts for me was that what my father was in terms of a role model for me, I carry inside me, and I can be that role model for other people. And it's my decision to use the highest esteem that I hold him in as my goal and as my future self of where I want to be. A lot of people told me, yeah, but you're idolizing him. I didn't know all of his sides, but I knew him as a father, and there he was to me, in this moment of being there for me when I needed him, he was a role model. I don't care if I idolize this version of him. I'm going to use this version as my goal. And I know I'm not going to be perfect, but it's a really, really powerful anchor, because I want to honor his memory. And I want to make him proud. The heaviest thing is, he had a stroke, and so he couldn't really talk for the last year. And my stepmom, so my father had a family for himself with a stepmom and my two younger brothers. And when I couldn't go, they lived in the south of Germany, and I was in Berlin. I was working these 60-hour weeks, so I didn't have time to go to see him. And then there was this day where I realized, okay, I can't go down, and he's already in palliative care, and the part of the hospital that they bring you when it's going down. Sorry for the humor. That's just my way to cope with it. And I realized, okay, this is not gonna be, he's not gonna be there for long. And I wrote a letter, and the letter was sitting there, and I thought, okay, if I send it by post, maybe it's not gonna reach him. So I recorded a voicemail. I read this letter out, and that was tough. And my stepmom took some headphones, and on my request, played this voicemail for him with headphones. And she told me that after she played it, although he was already half unconscious and he didn't react to it, there was one little tear rolling down his face. And a couple of minutes later, he died. It's insane, no? I'm not joking. I'm not joking. I'm not making this up. And in this voicemail, I know that I was always a bit of like the lost son, because I have an older sister, and my father, he raised her, and they spend a lot of their time together, and he also spent a lot of time with my younger brothers. But with me, I was gone. I was living with my mom and own family, and we had little contact. We had no contact for a couple of years, and then we connected at the end, and I never told him that. And I called him in the voicemail. I remember I called him Papa with such devotion. I used to call him Felix, but I called him Papa, Dad, with such devotion. And I told him that I'm so proud of what he helped me to be. And I'm so proud. And he was the best dad, the best father in his role of a father that he could have been. And I'm just happy for what it was. Till this day, I only managed to listen to that voicemail 3 times. Talk about it. Ask for advice from people who have lived through it. And recognize how you can honor this person's memory. This will give you strength. This will give you an outlet and reflection. This will give you guidance, and this will give you strength in the process. Hope this helps. I'm diving into things like this, inner child meditations, etc., right now on this YouTube channel, and every other week, every morning for morning meditations on Instagram. If you're going through something like this and want just some community, some support system, you can either comment under the video or you can reach out to me. And yeah, we can have a chat. It's important that you're not alone. And if I can help with just a message, I'm glad to do that. You're gonna be so much bigger, so much stronger, so much lighter, and so much more settled once you've gone through that process. I wish you all the best. I love you. Take care.